Hello, everyone. Pardon me if my voice seems a little bit different. I've kind of lost my voice a little bit, but this is the sample video as we kick off season 2. So I like to create a free video kind of to sample what our classes feel like. And so I hope you find it fun. I hope you find it informative. And today we're just going to be drawing a simple figure, part of a project that I'm actually working on. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Jan van Eyck, who painted the piece that we're going to be talking about in the mid-1400s, which, just to put that in perspective, that's before Columbus discovered America. And so really excited about it. It's a piece that I've seen in person, and it was simply breathtaking. So let's go ahead and let's warm up. And while we're warming up, I'll kind of explain how the class works in case you're new to drawing class for kids. So to warm up, let's go ahead and roll our wrists for a minute. While we're rolling our wrists, so what I do with drawing class for kids is I record a season. A season of videos typically involves 5 or 6 episodes. And during that time, we focus on one skill, whether it's drawing people, whether it's trying to understand lighting and perspective. It kind of just depends. Depends on requests from you, kind of depends on what I feel like young artists could use to improve their skill. I stay away from today we're going to learn how to draw a dragon, or today we're going to learn how to draw this thing, because I don't think that really teaches you how to draw. It teaches you how to draw something, but it doesn't teach you how to draw. Let's see what else. At the end of each class, we spend about 5 minutes talking about a famous artist and one of their works to just kind of get you understanding the breadth of art in this world that you're going to be diving into. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I know it may seem weird, but stretch your elbows and shoulders as well. So you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just pulling my arm across my chest and rolling my shoulders back to try and warm them up. While we're doing that, I'll explain kind of how everything works. So once you purchase a season pass, that will get you access to that entire season. And you can purchase those on my website, which is www.drawingclassforkids.com. And once you purchase a season pass, I'll kick off the season at a specified time, and I will send you an email with that week's video. So we'll run it for 5 weeks. We'll do them all together. That video will be available for 1 week, and then I'll take it down so that it's no longer able to be watched. So that keeps us all kind of on a similar time schedule and accountable to each other. Then I'll email out the second week's video, and we'll do that together. And during this time, I'll be grading any homework that I give out, any assignments, or any artwork that you do during that time. Feel free to post on Facebook on your own wall, and just tag me with drawing class the number 4 kids on Facebook, and that'll let me know that there's something to be graded. And yeah, so that's what you get for buying a season pass. You get access to roughly 3 hours of classes, along with graded homework assignments, and hopefully a good drawing base. So all of my joints feel very warmed up. The reason why we stretch our shoulders and our elbows is because you really shouldn't draw from your wrist. You should really draw from your elbow and shoulder. So if you're doing it right, you should really use mostly your elbow and shoulder, and your wrist shouldn't be locked, but it shouldn't be doing a lot of this kind of stuff because our wrist is less reliable than our elbow and shoulder. We're going to warm up today with these Black Rabbit dice. These just help me when they help me get into drawing quickly, so I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what to draw. I can just simply roll these, and they give me some interesting things that would be fun to draw. I'm actually going to draw a phone, I think. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and draw a phone. The reason why I like these is I would always sit down to draw, know that I needed to practice, but I wouldn't know what to draw. I would get sick of drawing things that were right in front of me because it was always the same things. And these give me a little bit of a variety. When I start getting bored, I start mashing up two of them. So like, what does a ghost phone look like? Or the ghost of a phone, like a phone ghost. But today we're just going to do a phone. And I'll go ahead and get started. One thing that's really nice to focus on when you're warming up is drawing like nice long straight lines. And also doing little details like rounding corners. But feel free to keep it really loose. Remember our motto is do it light until you get it right. And let's see, what I'm doing is I'm blocking out the phone here. So if you've seen, or I guess season 2, we go over a little bit of perspective. And what perspective is kind of this illusion of making it look like it's popping off the page a little bit. So you can see how I've kind of drawn 2 layers to this phone, one above and then another one below. And you'll start to see as we add light to it, these are some of the skills that we'll cover in season 2, you'll start to see how real it starts to look. So I'm going to draw this little edge for the screen. We'll do a button right here, so we'll want this to come up and around the button. And this is one reason why you do it light first, because you can really draw through things and get things exact. If you do it light, then later when you darken everything in, you won't really even notice that you did it. This phone is looking awfully square. It looks more like a Pop-Tart, which the idea of a Pop-Tart phone sounds fun to me. So I'll probably just switch it and make it into a Pop-Tart if we're all cool with that. So if I want it to be a Pop-Tart, you kind of have to have the icing dripping down the sides here a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do some drippy marks. And then maybe it comes up on the side. Probably could have done those a little bit lighter. This is all just practice anyway. So I'm making these nice clean lines that I drew kind of wobbly, which is kind of funny. But it's all part of the illusion. So, let's see. Now that I have that, I'm just going to go ahead and do one of these like little swirls that Pop-Tarts have on them a lot of times. I know I'm well into this, but I'm actually going to cut out an edge right here as if it's been eaten. So remember, since we're doing this in perspective, we have kind of the 2 layers. There we go. So I know it looks a little bit weird now because I colored these in pretty dark, but we'll see if we can kind of get your eye to ignore them a little bit. So one of the things about drawing is you generally don't just start a picture and make it beautiful, right? You generally draw it once, and then once you kind of have an idea of what you want, you'll trace over it, or you just start over because you've done it once before and it'll be easier to do the second time. Drawing can be a really long process, so try and be patient. Okay, so here's going to be our first little lesson. I've probably stressed this before. If you watched season 1, I think we went over this, but it's called line weight. And so when you're doing lines, you generally have a couple different weights. So you have like a thick line. You have kind of like a medium line that's 2 or 3 times over the same line, and then you have like your thin line. That medium one could be a little bit thicker. There we go. These lines are for the outline. These ones are for inside lines, and these ones are for overlap. So an example of an overlapping line is this frosting on the bottom here. And sorry, I can't talk. And an example of an inside line is like this line where it goes around the button over here. It's just kind of like a detail. It doesn't have any two things like overlapping each other, and it's not on the outside. It's just kind of a little detail. And it's amazing how much just like getting this outside line nice and heavy will make your image kind of pop off the page. A lot of times I'll get a marker that's a little bit heavier for the outside. You'll start to see, this is why we do it light, because if you've done your lines light enough, then a lot of times when you do this part, it'll really just make those light lines that you didn't mean to make kind of disappear. Hopefully you're starting to see this come to life a little bit. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say that there's light coming from over here. So that means that this bottom edge is going to be a little bit darker than the rest. And this is where it really starts to get magical. So you can see that's going to affect a lot of this, but since this starts curving around, it starts catching a little bit of light that's coming from over there. So we're going to go dark right there and then slowly get a little bit lighter toward that edge. But then it's going to get nice and dark over there again. And then light again. Nice and dark and then light. And that just gets us our nice bite mark. And we're going to use this again for this like little swirl of frosting that we did on here. So we're going to make it two-dimensional. By giving it another line. And then if the light's coming from over there again, that means it's going to hit this side with bright light and this bottom side with darker. So we're going to make sure that this bottom side gets a darker line than the top side. So light up here, dark up here, light up here, it's a dark on this side. Light over here, dark over here. So the underside of all of these lines is going to be a little bit darker. And can you see how this is just starting to get a little bit more round and full, and it actually starts looking like it's coming off the page just a little bit. This is the secret to all good art, whether it's photography or drawing or painting. It's all in the lighting, and maybe some people would agree. I mean, maybe some people would disagree with me on that, but every time I've seen an amazing piece, it's really mostly been because they knew how to work the lighting really well. I'm just going to really patiently put a few little lines along this edge to kind of show. Maybe this is taking too long for a warm-up, but I feel like we're learning a lot of good principles. I think we'll probably stick with these principles, and then we'll go ahead and go on and practice some things later. I know this can be a little bit long and tedious putting in little details like this, but this is what makes it so worth it in the end. And there are different ways, like right now I'm using kind of a method called hatching, which is all of these little lines to make it look kind of like it has a shadow. It kind of is a way to trick the eye. Another good way to do this would be to get a gray crayon that isn't going to color super dark, and then you could just run it along these edges really quick and give it a nice shadow. All right, this is our Pop-Tart phone. I'm going to go along these top sides just to make sure they at least stand out a little bit. I like it. Not satisfied with the amount of shadow that I'm getting on these. I feel like that light is coming pretty strong, so that's going to make more of a shadow. I'm just going to hint at that a little bit. And notice right here, I'm not really scribbling, I'm just really quickly doing line after line. It may look like I'm scribbling, but I swear I'm not. Alright, there's our Pop-Tart phone. Woohoo! Alright, and that's our brief lesson on line weight. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's go ahead and draw something else. We'll put away the dice. If you're interested in a set of these dice, they are for sale on my website. I find them handy. I also use them as storytelling dice to tell stories to my kids. And yeah, so let's get into the main part. Today we're going to use these same principles of line weight to draw a little character. So what I've been working on getting a little character that kind of resembles this guy, but I'm not sold on this one. So we're gonna draw something like this, kind of with no face, just really simple shapes. But you can see in this example the heavy line weight around the outside. You can see the medium line right here because that's where the stomach intersects or overlaps where the arm is. And then you can see these really thin lines in the ears that kind of just point out details. So we're going to try and use these principles to draw another little animal. I'm going to start with a big round circle because I want this thing to be super cuddly and cute. And circles, they're soft and approachable. So we'll start with a circle. I'm actually going to use that circle as the head. Yeah, I'm feeling like a really big head on this guy. We're going to draw another smaller circle down here, and I think that's going to point out the belly. I did a similar shape on this that I like. See how his belly down here is kind of a circle, and then it kind of goes up into this like gourd shape. I like that shape, and so I'm going to reuse it, but basically I'm going to supersize this head. Alright. So hopefully you can start to see what this guy is going to look like. Let's get some feet on here. He seems like he's kind of leaning backward a little bit, so I'm going to adjust this. Let's do... It's probably going to be a bear of some sort. What a nice bushy tail on it. Oh, I just realized this is a bunny and I didn't really do a tail. Alright, let's see. So notice how light I'm doing this. Hopefully you can see it. Man, I didn't plan on it. I thought that would kind of be the stomach of it. But since I switched the head, I'm running off the page just a little bit. So hopefully you can still see this. So I'm just generally blocking out a little bit of kind of what I want my little fella to look like. I'm going to try something. Put these big ol' hands coming up here, like kind of holding on to his head a little bit. Let's see how to do this one. Alright, and now let's get some ears. So, ooh, I kind of want headphones. Some headphones would be nice on this guy because he's kind of holding his ears. So you can tell I'm kind of making this up as I go along. Sometimes I have a really clear vision in my head of what I want it to be, but the majority of the time I'm really not sure, and drawing is a great way for me to kind of think through things. Because as you saw with the phone, kind of halfway through I was like, ooh, that's the shape of a Pop-Tart. What would a Pop-Tart phone look like? So here we have, let's see, I want his face to come down a little bit right there. Oh yeah, his head is huge. I wasn't really going to do a mouth, but I'm starting to realize that this guy isn't going to be what I want. So at this point I might like switch. I've gotten him far along enough that I'm like, yeah, I can kind of tell where he's going and whether he's going to work out for what I need. I can tell this guy's not exactly what I need, so I would usually start over right here. But because this is a class, we're going to go ahead and keep drawing. And every once in a while I get really surprised. I think I'm going to abandon one, but I just keep going for fun. And it ends up being really nice, so we'll see. Alright, so here we're going to have a nice example of the line weight. So if you want to take a minute and just think through where I'm going to use heavy lines, where I'm going to use medium lines, and where I'm going to use light lines, it might be really interesting for you to see if you're right, so you can kind of quiz yourself. Let's see, give him some rosy cheeks. Huh, okay. Alright, if you're done, maybe some freckles. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and first I usually hit the entire outside with a heavier marker. I am using a Sharpie, which if you use a Sharpie, make sure you have a paper underneath because it will bleed through. But please don't use a Sharpie unless your parents know what you're doing. So as you can see, I'm just going along the whole outside. And because I've drawn it light with like lots of different lines, this isn't just like a tracing exercise. I still have to think about like what lines I want to follow and which ones are going to be best. Okay, so you can see if I just have light lines and I just have dark lines, it starts to look really weird because your eye can't like figure out between the two. So what you need kind of an in-between, which I'm going to use this for that. And so now I'm going to pick out all places where his body kind of overlaps in other parts. So you can see right here, there's this leg in front of this leg. Hitting that with just a little bit darker of a line is going to make that whole thing just stand out a little bit better and kind of bridge the gap between those two line weights. And then you're going to see his stomach is actually going to have a little bit of an overhang. So it's going to hang down right there a little bit. And then his body, his tail, since it's around the back, is actually going to have the edge of his body intersect with, or I guess it's going to overlap a little bit with the tail. And then his arm right here. This is kind of an interesting one because his arm does like end up intersecting with his body. I end up a little bit lighter down here and a little bit heavier toward the top. Let's go ahead and... So you notice right there, that was one place where I kind of deviated from what I had drawn before. I had his hand going out here, just kind of like as a circle, but I realized that his fingers would be curling around the headphone a little bit, so I needed to have a little bit more curl to that finger. So keep in mind, this isn't just tracing, like you're redrawing at this point. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and give his nose. So these headphones, they sit pretty close up against his ear, so I wouldn't necessarily always hit those with a medium line weight, but they're also going to be casting a little bit of a shadow on his ear, so that kind of makes up for it and makes it kind of an even line weight. So this is a good example of where right here we're seeing through the top of these headphones to the background, so I actually missed some of the outline. So I'm going to go in through here and add a little bit more. So the reason why we do such a heavy line between the background and him is because you really want him to feel like he's not part of that background. So you want it to separate more. The more you want to separate two objects and make them look different or like separate from each other, the heavier line you put in between them is a general rule that you can follow. Sorry, I got distracted. I just had to color in these eyes real quick. Can never tell if they're cute until you finish putting in the eyes. Gonna do a little bit of hatching through here just to darken his nose a little bit. And then you can color in these freckles. I decided against that blush in his cheek. Can't forget his belly. Aha, and signature belly button. All right, and see, then you can start to look at him and see like what parts of it aren't popping out as much as you want. And I'm seeing this line right here. I'm not seeing his arm as much as I want to, so I'm actually going to make this just a little bit heavier of a line weight. And then on top of that, I assume the sun is coming from somewhere over here, so I'm actually going to go through, pardon me, and put a little bit of shadow on this back side, the farthest side away from the sun, just so we can get a little bit of light. Keep in mind, this is kind of like an introduction to the things that we'll be practicing in Season 2. So if all of this seems like a little bit much, like that might be reason to sign up for Season 2, and we'll go over it in a little bit more depth and a little bit more simplicity. But here. All right. Just putting some finishing touches. Then while you guys finish yours, I'm going to talk a little bit about Jan van Eyck. Jan van Eyck is a really, really interesting artist. He was definitely somebody who was kind of at the top of his field when he was an artist, and he's known for pieces like the Arnolfini Wedding. Today we're going to talk about the Man in the Red Turban. I believe it's just called that. I don't think he actually titled it that. But it's speculated that everyone's pretty sure that it's a self-portrait of him that he drew, that he painted himself when he drew it. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of people have speculated why he painted it the way he did, especially if it's of himself. It's not a really flattering picture. If you can get a really good high-resolution image of it and zoom in, the wrinkles around his eyes, and you can see all the blood veins in his eyes look a little bit bloodshot. He looks very, very real. A lot of people think that he painted this painting to show off, to show everybody what he could do. It was kind of an advertisement and a portfolio piece to show everyone how good he could actually paint. And because he would be showing them this in person, it made sense that it was a self-portrait, because they could look at him, they could look at the painting and see his skill and see how good he really was. And let me tell you, he is amazing. When we talk about lighting and making things jump off the page, he was a master. I saw this in person in London, and I'll tell you what, I walked up to it, and I had always liked the painting, but I kind of didn't get it until I saw it in person, and it was just so striking. The reds were so vibrant, and this painting is 500 years old, and the I just don't even know how to describe it. It literally looked like he was there, like there was like a liveliness or a soul to his eyes, and I don't think I've really ever had that experience with another painting in my life, and I've seen a lot of paintings. Um, but it was a fantastic experience. So if you ever get the chance to see that one in person, I would highly, highly recommend it. It's in the National Gallery in London, and it was a phenomenal piece. Kind of solidified my love for Jan van Eyck. If you want to look up the Arnolfini wedding, you can see he was still in a time period when portraits and stuff, they didn't look quite real. And that was something that the art world was still learning how exactly to paint people and make them look realistic. But you can see from his self-portrait that he was definitely on the right track. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed today. We definitely covered some weird areas with this teddy bear with an oversized head and headphones, our Pop-Tart phone. Just remember your 3 line weights. You want to outline with the darkest. You want the stuff on the inside, just kind of like the little details, to be lighter. And then you want somewhere in the middle for the places to show where something's behind and something's in front. Remember, the darker the line makes them spread a little bit farther apart from each other and starts to give it this look of three-dimensionality. If you want to sign up for season 2, enrollment is open right now. So go ahead and go to drawingclassforkids.com and go to the season pass or the shop page, and you can go ahead and get signed up for season 2. I think we start around the new year. So thank you all for your time, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.